I only count 9 votes, Mr. McMurphy.
I want that television set turned on! The chief... Stop this immediately!
Oh, nurse, man.
Sit down!
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Sam.
The world perceived her as a villain. What do you think of her now, given that you did your study, now you have a deeper understanding from this show?
I've had the great good fortune to work with Louise Fletcher and to know her a little bit. She's a very complex actress and a very serious actress. Her approach to the role was complex and intriguing. And if you watch it again today, you might not see it that way today. I think it has more to do with who we are today than the way probably that she played the role.
I'm talking about the character. She represented authoritarianism at the time.
Right.
Do you think that's the representation of authoritarianism? Because each one of us has some Ratched inside him.
I think that that's true. Some people take their authoritarian position and abuse it, and we don't know why they're abusing it. Were they abused? Were they the subject of abuse? Are they being abused? Are they trapped inside learning disabilities? Are they trapped inside some other kind of mental health disability? I think that abuse itself is a separate subject. You know, authoritarianism is not necessarily coupled with abuse. There are good authority figures, and there's good uses of authority and power. But when people use their authority to abuse or to harm, that is generally a symptom of crisis in their lives.
If Mr. McMurphy doesn't want to take his medication orally, I'm sure we can arrange that he can have it some other way. But I don't think you'd like it, Mr. McMurphy.
Nurse Ratched was simply applying the acceptable treatment methods at the time. Why was she perceived as the ultimate villain?
You're the only person who has said this, and this is exactly what I feel. I did not feel that way when I first watched the movie, but when I rewatched it in preparation for doing this, I thought, this is a woman who's a product of her time, who doesn't know to challenge what's been told to her in terms of the way of treating these patients. And it certainly was the prevalent thinking in terms of treatments in the United States at that time. I think what I decided, the reason why people found what she did and her behavior to be so villainous was because the very nature of that movie is designed to have us fall in love with the patients. And she is at every turn stopping them from having a peaceful day, a joyful day. She's so focused on her commitment to the rules, and what she believes will help them is to have some sort of structure. And, you know, I think we all want people in a moment of great challenge to do something more heroic and better. And what would have been really heroic is if she went against everything she'd been taught, everything she knew, in terms of how to treat people, and only led with her humanity. And if she had done that, maybe the outcome wouldn't have been so terrible. But she didn't do that because she was a product of her time, a woman in a real male-dominated work environment, and she did what she thought was right.
I should have never let you into this hospital.
Letting me into this hospital was the best decision you ever made.
Well, okay. Now, it's true, in the show, you deepen her character. You get to know her better than the previous one. She's three-dimensional. But you kept the same tone in acting terms. She's still cold. You projected that coldness.
Mm-hmm. I didn't think it would be helpful for an audience to not recognize her at all. And I do sometimes think that as we get older, you end up sort of becoming a more calcified version of who you were as a younger person when you're still a sponge and you're still you're forming yourself. But by the time, so when we meet Louise Fletcher and Nurse Ratched in the movie, which takes place in the mid-1970s, you think, oh, well, how did she get to be that sort of chilly and that cold and that sort of seemingly shut down? And I just wanted to have something that audiences could recognize from the character so that they knew that they were in safe hands. And what I mean is, like, people have an attachment to Mildred Ratched, and they have an expectation of who they think she is. And if it bared zero resemblance to her, I wonder if people would have gone along for the ride. And I just also thought, given what we were telling, the story we were telling about her childhood, it certainly would stand to reason that her coldness and her rigidity would have been a real result of that kind of treatment that she was subjected to protect herself. And so that felt like the right choice.
How about a few You have been subjected to enough pain.
I can show you a good time.
But you deserve someone to show you mercy. How different I would be if someone had.
Do you wanna have?
In this show, though, everybody is flawed. For them, the end justifies every mean. Was that deliberate on your part or the show's part to show that she is just a flawed human like anybody else?
I think if you're going to make a show about a character that we know very, very little about, both from the book and the movie, you know, we never see her in her home life. We never see her outside the hospital. We have an opportunity to do a deeper dive and see what we can learn or invent about this character, that this is our take on what might have happened to Mildred Ratched to make her the way that she is ultimately in the movie, and the way that we all carry that very iconic performance from that very iconic movie. So yes, it was deliberate to allow for a little bit of light to get in and a little bit of humanity to get in. And it doesn't mean that she doesn't behave in ways that are morally questionable. But like you say, it is a means to an end. And if there are bodies along the way, that is a horrible consequence, but one that she is willing to risk for the things she needs most in the world.
Who's going to take care of my son? I have to take care of everything. I have to feed him and bathe him and clean up after him when he defecates all over himself. I have to do everything.
I understand.
Hanover, or whatever he's calling himself these days, must die.
She's willing to commit a murder for the sake of her son, yet she prefers a monkey to him. How do you explain that?
I think she loves him so much, but the trauma of what happened to him, it fills her with such remorse and such guilt that she spends her time with this monkey because she just wants to be able to have companionship and talk. And I think all of us talk to ourselves and have that higher consciousness, whatever it is that we talk to. I think the monkey on Lenore's back is a kind of a metaphor for how she resolves her problems and how she has her strength and how she has communion, because she's lost faith in those larger aspects of things because of what happened to her son. So she has something that she can see and feel and touch, and it helps her stay grounded and helps her feel safer.
If we had seen her in a movie from the old days, the 70s, like the time of the famous One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, we would have perceived her as a villain. But here, maybe with our new consciousness, it doesn't come across as villain. Actually, she's just a hurt mother.
Right.
And we feel some sympathy towards her. Do you think that film or storytellers have become more aware or more mature in presenting humans?
I think what we're having now and what happened before is we start to see people painted in broad strokes. And I don't like to do that with the characters that I play, because I think people are much more complicated than that. I mean, as far back as 25 years ago, I started looking at villains as character studies. I mean, for me, when I'm playing someone who's a criminal, I still have to figure out why. Why are they a criminal? If they're a sociopath, what is it that motivates them? Why are they so inured to everything else that they're specifically focused on this singular thing? I mean, there are people that did think that Joan of Arc was completely insane, socio or psychopathic in her movements. And there are other people that thought, obviously, she was a saint. It's perspective. And you have to look at these perspectives and not get involved in the looking from the outside in, but looking from the inside out. So that's all that I can do. I can't really say how other people approach it, but I approach them as human beings.
And nurses are saving the world these days.
They sure are.
Sharon, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.